Hi, I'm Wenda. I'm the Manager of Client Services with the Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia. What you're about to see is a conversation between two remarkable women talking about their experiences and thoughts about living with dementia. Sandra has lived and worked in Halifax since 1987. She was diagnosed with Lewy body disease about 6 years ago. And Marilyn was born in Halifax, moved to Medicine Hat with her parents when she was about 2 years old, and recently has returned to Halifax after a career in Medicine Hat. She was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease about 5 years ago. These generous women are going to share an absolute gift with this conversation about their friendship, their advocacy, and strategies for living well with dementia, their frustrations, and the kindnesses that help. And I think we can all learn a thing about dementia that perhaps we didn't realize before when we watched this through to the end. So I'd like to thank these women, and here are Marilyn and Sandra.
Thank you. We're glad for this opportunity to be able to speak.
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone for that who came today, and we really appreciate being able to speak today.
We could not have done this session when we were first diagnosed 5 and 6 years ago. We would have both been blabbering idiots. Sandra, let's talk about the feelings on being first diagnosed with dementia. What was it like?
One of my first thoughts when I was diagnosed was that I was going to be locked up. I had done volunteer work at the psychiatric hospital in Sydney, Cape Breton in around 1973. We used to call the psychiatric hospital the Butterscotch Palace. There were so many patients there with many different mental health problems and issues, including those with early onset dementia and late stage dementia, end of stages. So when I heard that I had early onset dementia, I was sure that was going to be me. That experience with the stigmatism of Alzheimer, of dementia, that was formed when I was 15 years old. I was so sure that that was going to happen to me, that I was going to be locked up. That experience with the stigmatism of dementia, I had formed it at 15 years old. When I was diagnosed, it took 3 years of testing at the memory clinic. I was also experiencing hallucinations, but I didn't tell anyone, which was a mistake because it was a key part of my diagnosis of having Lewy body dementia. I was always second-guessing myself. Are the people next to me, are they real or are they not? There was one time I was sitting on a bus and I really thought the person next to me was an actual person, and I had a great conversation with her until the lady turned around who was sitting in front of me and asked me, she goes, "Are you talking to me?" And I just kind of went, "Oh, I'm talking out loud again. I'm so sorry. I'm talking to myself." Just trying to get about it, just trying to get around it. Then after connecting with some supportive people like Jennifer and Wenda, all the staff at Alzheimer's really, I slowly got over my feelings of hopelessness. For that first year, I was almost a hermit crab. The program that my daughter and Wenda had guided me to, Shaping the Journey, held by the Alzheimer's Society, brought me out of my hermit crab shell, so to speak. What about you, Marilyn? How did you feel when you were first
Well,
diagnosed?
before I was diagnosed, I noticed myself that I couldn't follow Tai Chi lessons. I went to the first primary lesson and I went 3 times. Each time I progressively was getting worse. I couldn't remember any body actions. So I knew something was wrong. And I also had some problems with driving. I was when I was driving, I was missing seeing red lights, and I was a danger. So that was the first thing to go. I was given Aricept to try. It made me feel sick. I stopped taking the pills, but I was afraid to tell anybody because they told me how good the pills were working for me. So anyway, I was scared. I only thought, like you, I only thought of the end stages of the disease. That's all I knew. So I immediately contacted my lawyer and set up everything, end of life things, because I thought it was going to be, like, my lifespan was going to be a matter of 6 months or something like that.
What do you miss and long for in the good old days before we had our diagnosis, Marilyn?
Oh, I've experienced changes in doing physical things. I have given up knitting and crocheting because they're just so, they're not a pleasure to me anymore. They're frustration. I can't remember what my hands have done. I can remember other things, but when it comes to the physical movements that I've taken, I have a problem there. So I don't do that anymore. I don't knit or crochet. And others, I used to be a valued member as a family support, and that is no longer so. And it changes how I am seen, and others have expectations of me from long ago, and I have to explain to them that that's not something I can't do anymore. I have limitations. And sometimes I even forget my own limitations and I get myself in a bind. And when I forget my limitations, I have to talk to myself and sort that out. But grieving for these losses is normal, and I've been taught through, what is it called, the journey? Shaping the journey. Through that shaping the journey and the help of Jennifer, I realized it's grief, and I know how to handle grief, and then I know it ends. Yeah. So, Sandra, how about you? What do you miss, and how was it for longing for things of the good old days?
Well, there are many things that I can no longer do also. If I can't do an activity because it's for safety reasons, I tell myself and others over and over and over again, it seems, as I need to, I just don't do this anymore. These are driving, cooking, ironing, looking after my grandkids by myself. For driving, I was a good driver and I liked to drive. No, I probably loved to drive. But I had to stop driving as I was getting lost all the time. The last year that I had my car, I might have driven 6 times. It took a whole year, my hermit crab year, to admit to myself I really couldn't be allowed to, I should not be on the road anymore. The turns were becoming too erratic. Stop signs were, like you said, a blur. they were seen in hindsight. With my cooking, I had a support person from continuing care come in and help me with some of the household tasks, one of them being cooking. I had burned all my good pots. They became my bad pots, and I reburnt them. So my daughter found someone to help me with doing this. I really didn't like it at first. It felt like it was an invasion of my privacy. And I really didn't get used to that, having someone in my house doing work I felt I really should have been able to do. It was really hard. But I now live in an assisted living facility where I have my own space, and I go to a dining room for meals. But I still miss not cooking. I used to love cooking, doing dinner parties, everything like that. Now, I have to let that part go. If I can do an activity, but I don't remember how at that moment, well, I just go on the internet and relearn it. I love knitting. I love crocheting. My hands don't work the best at times, as you were saying with yours, but so I'll start a project, I'll go online, figure out how to do it, knit myself a bit. Then the thing is, a couple of days later, I'll go back to it. I have to watch the video again. So my tension's maybe not as tight or anything like that, but I learn it. Same with braiding my granddaughter's hair. I go on the internet and I do it. And when I get to her house, I remember some of it, and she goes, "Nana, is it time for the iPod again, so you can relearn how to do my hair?" And she gets quite a kick out of trying to take care of me. Anything I do, I use the internet a lot. I'm very thankful for the internet. As I can go on, I can do planning for my projects. One of my last big projects that I did was I made a planter stand for my balcony. It was a three-sided planter stand, 3 steps high. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but I did it all by myself, and I was quite proud of it. And the internet got a lot of use those days.
You really have perseverance.
I may not be fast at it, but I plug away at my own pace. So, yes, our diagnosis, there are changes and losses, but there also have been learning and gains. Our idea, my idea, and I think it's yours also, is just to live well with what we have and just keep smiling and going on.
I was wondering how you do live well with the changes.